few fines around it, but it's a big deal. But there's always that kind of legitimate interest. The GDPR, that's that the get out clause, which is like you're marketing for legitimate interest. It was 4% for GDPR of global turnover, but now that's for this one. It's gone up to 7% of global turnover.
Pretty crazy. I think the other thing in terms of a comparison that I think is interesting is people, the receiver, somebody receiving a cold call, somebody getting marketed to, etc. I don't think they realized where their data was.
Like the AI, so it
Yeah,
becomes you will put data in, AI will do some concluding and reasoning, and what you then can't just outsource to the AI is the decision making factor. So there's a level of, as you can see on the screen here, from prohibited to high risk to limited risk and minimal risk around what, not that you're using AI, so don't be wrong about or think about it saying you cannot use AI. It's more a scale of you can use AI, but how much you use AI for to determine outcomes of certain conditions and certain things within your business. And as you can see on the screen here, some of it from a, so what's prohibited, banned outright, is like use of surveillance and emotion recognition in employees and social scoring and subliminal manipulation. So like the coercion kind of element of it, trying to use AI to get someone to do something that might not be in their interest. Right?
yeah,
Or to determine something around someone's emotional state in work, right? And that's like totally fully prohibited. And if you look down at the high risk ones, so looking at how they're being used across specific sectors and businesses and in certain situations around providing oversight. Basically meant if you've got a C-level or VP level job, you can't outsource all responsibility for something that happens within your organisation and your team. And we saw some fines on this and some failings within certain large company IT teams where the CIO, not only did the company get a fine from the regulator, the CIO personally got a fine from the regulator for failing to act or control the program of which was in their remit in a fashion, right? So what it meant is that the roles that are under the senior manager regime, which is like the C-suite, etc., and a bit more, they can't go, I wasn't aware. Because if it happened in their team, there's a potential they're personally liable. They must be aware. They must have governance. They must have oversight. The reason I bring that up is it just reminds me very much of that in the fact that whereas you've got the C-suite that were a senior manager regime and regulated, it's saying here that you're responsible for the AI. So thus you are all as taking the outcome of AI, you almost all become like a senior manager that has to be responsible and view and be in the loop to ensure that the AI isn't deciding
yeah.
stuff in your organisation or your teams and your.
I think then, one, right? Why is this important now? Well, it's important now because an event coming up in terms of regulation starting August 1st, and the size of the penalties can be not just the size of the penalty, as we're talking about here, depending on the tier of the issue or what happens, but the consequence. If you are engaged in a prohibited practice, not only are you going to get a huge penalty, but the EU has the right to come in and just simply shut that off, which then could have catastrophic implications depending on what you are doing and what part of your business that's involved in.
Yeah, I always for these things I separate out I always write off the malicious intent. Right? There's organisations or there's things or there's people out there that are using every bit of technology in a malicious way to exploit and to gain.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. We're talking those that are just naively going full gung ho into using AI, or actually haven't stated a position. This is what and you've got to retain that somehow for 7 years to be with your data retention. This is what common happens with the regulator. You'll see some of the fines come out, and if you look at some of the detail, it can be a bit boring to walk through, but they came in probably on a customer finding or a customer issue, and they've worked all the way through the stack of the org, and they've connected all these different regulations, and then, unlucky for the company sometimes, what the determination will be is they're fined this much because they infringed this reg over here, this reg over here, this reg over
They
here.
missed, yeah, they missed some things.
Compound effect.
Yeah.
It could be because they didn't keep the data, they couldn't see the data, they couldn't recall it.
So then, really, the burden of responsibility here with this AI regulation isn't actually all of that different than any other regulation in terms of being able to show evidence of how things were done and
Yeah.
who did it and when it was done and all of
Good
that.
practice.
Yeah, thanks very much. As always, enjoyed the discussion. I hope you did as well. If you think of anything, interested in knowing more, please feel free to reach out. Contact us at info@brooklynsolutions.ai. Would love to help you think through this if you've got any concerns. Thanks, everybody.